This is Teresita Blanco, the Artsy Sister. Today I wanted to talk to you about one of the earliest books I published. This book is about all of the little poems that I have ever written. As you can see, it is a really bulky book. And even though most of the poems that I wrote did not make the cut, I suppose some people would like to rework old poetry, but until it becomes better. But if the initial emotion that inspired the poem did not produce good content, then it's not worth trying to preserve. The first thing I wanted to mention about the poems is the front cover of the book. As you can see, I hand painted it. I use paper instead of a canvas. This is actually a self-portrait of me based on a very, very old family photo. I then reworked the backgrounds and the color in order to try to make it more poetic. When I was small, I had a little pet parakeet. I did not want a little pet parakeet, but I had it. I kept feeling bad for the birds because they barely lasted, and then they changed them for new birds, and I obviously knew that they weren't the real bird because I'm not a stupid kid. The photo reference that I used for this painting is this one. See? Here is the little Artsy Sister in this very, 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 very old photo that is yellow, that has seriously deteriorated over the years. I still remember the original colors of the photo. That's how I was able to match it. See, the flowers were originally very tiny yellow flowers. I liked the color yellow a lot when I was a kid. In the original photo, I was smiling, but then my brother suggested that I would look deeper if I frowned. So I painted myself for the poetry book with a frowny face in order to make my poems seem more serious. Then again, considering how I ended up where and when I wrote the poems, it's a good thing that I put it on a serious tone. I started writing poetry right around 8th grade. I started with a poem about my dog, and then I went from there into more other subject matters. First, I would write them on these pieces of paper. I will write here instead on the side right after I finish my regular schoolwork. If you bother to look at my grade point average and of my past and whatnot, you will see that I always did well when I had a mind to do so. It was only around high school when I really, really started taking schoolwork seriously. But that was mainly because the people in the less advanced classes were mean to me, so I figured that maybe the honor students were more behaved. And one thing led to another, and then I ended up having a very high grade point average that I was able to get a scholarship in order to graduate from journalism without having to pay a cent. See, after writing the poems here, then I transfer them to cute little notebooks. See? In order to give them a better presentation for my own amusement. By the time they made it to this point, I had made a couple of changes here and there, and some also did not make the cut. See? Very nicely handwritten. And then eventually, once I was ready to publish them, I transferred them to a Word document where I took care of the spelling errors. Because as it is human to err, and it is very fuzzy to imagine that a person can have perfect spelling and grammar right off the bat since the very beginning, and language is fluid and it changes throughout time, and what was good one time is not good on the other, and so forth, and many words get retired over time. So I hope that you all like the story of how I went from this to my first to one of my first books that I published, which was about my poems. Well, that's about it. The end.